The Atlanta Braves and the Los Angeles Dodgers, as we've discussed, have left the playoffs in humiliating fashion, but that has us thinking specifically from Jordan, and I'm going to have him go first on this one. What is more embarrassing? What happened to the Braves this postseason or season, you could say, or what happened to the Dodgers? Jordan, what you think?
All right. It's not even close in my opinion, and I think it's the Braves. It's not embarrassing that the Braves lost to the Phillies. It's more embarrassing the fashion, right? We know how good the Braves offense was during the regular season. I know the postseason's a different animal, but let's just go over some numbers right here, and then I'll get into the whole, being upset part. Atlanta scored 5.8 runs a game during the regular season. They had 307 home runs. Uh, Five players hit over 30 homers. 10 players hit over 10 homers. This was considered the best offense of all time. And going into the postseason, it figured there wasn't a team that could stop them, right? Um, Now, credit the Phillies. They did have the pitching. And before the series, I did say I felt like Philadelphia was the one team that could beat the Braves. And shout out to them. They did. Um, but this was the first team to ever slug above 500 in the regular season, not the 1927 New York Yankees, right? The other greatest offense of all time that everyone talks about. Ronald Acuna Jr. won the MVP, but in the postseason, he was nowhere to be found. I gathered the numbers earlier today. He went 2 for 14 in the series, scored 3 runs, had 1 walk, struck out 2 times, and stole 1 base. That's that's completely embarrassing for the MVP to disappear in that much of a meaningful spot. Matt Olson didn't do much better. He led the majors in home runs and RBIs during the regular season with 54 bombs and 139 RBIs. Okay, he went 4 for 16 in the series, scored 1 run, 1 walk, had 1 strikeout. The Braves bullpen that was kind of struggling down the stretch, they pitched really well in the series. Actually, they had a 2.73 ERA, only giving up 4 runs in 13.2 innings. The unfortunate part is the runs that they gave up in games 1 and 2. Both of them were actually unearned. But I feel like the Braves, for the second year in a row, have been an embarrassment. Um, Specifically this year, winning 104 games. Like I said, not exactly to the for losing to the team they lost to, but how they lost. The so-called greatest offense of all time got completely shut down. Credit Ranger Suarez, Zach Wheeler, and Aaron Nola. They did a hell of a job. But yeah, the Braves just were completely embarrassing. I don't know what has to happen, but I hope that we have a not better regular season next year, but a more elongated postseason stay.
Okay, so I'm actually curious to hear how the Braves could improve, especially from losing back to back to the Phillies. We'll save that for a little bit. My take on this, I think it's close, actually. I do think it's close, but I think the Los Angeles Dodgers got swept by an inferior team. That's what it comes down to. So, first, I'll give Jordan credit. He is right that the Braves are a better team than the Los Angeles Dodgers, hence more expectations. They tied the home run record. Acuna is by far the MVP. They had more. I'm not going to say they were far and away the better team. The Dodgers still won 100 games, but they were the better team nevertheless. When it comes down to it, though, what I look at when I decide that is more embarrassing for the Dodgers is who they were playing. So, yes, the Phillies, they won like 89, 90 games this year, right? But you look at that lineup, that looks like a playoff lineup. I know Kyle Schwarber leading off sometimes. That's a little weird, right? When he's batting like 188. But, you have a solid foundation. You got Bryce Harper. You got JT Real Muto at catcher. You have Nick Castellanos, who's been batting great. You have what looks like a playoff roster. With the Diamondbacks, yes, of course, you have Corbin Carroll, who's been a phenomenon this year. And you got Kittle Marte, and so you have some bats, but then you look at it. Who was batting third in game 3 for the Diamondbacks? Tommy Pham. I mean, what's going on there? You got Evan Longoria, who's been, I respect Evan Longoria, but let's be real. His prime was probably about 10 years ago. And then again, Christian Walker, first base. Okay, he's decent, right? That looks like a team that got lucky that we have 6 seeds now in the playoffs that got in the playoffs. And again, I believe in Cinderella runs. I love Cinderella runs. But when you're talking about the amount of money invested in the Dodgers, to get swept like that is just embarrassing. And then just one more statistic I want to go over with that to really hammer home my point. The Phillies, who the Braves were facing, have a $243 million payroll. That is good for fourth in baseball. The Arizona Diamondbacks have a $116 million payroll. That is good for 21st in baseball in the bottom 10. So I do believe it's close based on the reasons Jordan listed. But I think the Dodgers and the Braves, in terms of talent, are a little closer together than the Diamondbacks and Phillies are. But before we switch this topic, I just want to ask, you get your butt kicked twice by a division opponent. Where do you go from here if you're the Braves? I'm just generally curious. Like, what do you do better? You just hit the most home runs, But
I don't know. I don't know if the Braves really. I don't know what exactly has to happen. But it does sting, right? Losing to the Phillies twice in a row. Obviously, Philadelphia going to the World Series this year might happen. Last year I meant might happen again this year. It just hate. I just hate to see that. Um, but I think the Braves have to go out and get a starting pitcher. Especially after the Kyle Wright news that he's expected to miss all of next season with Tommy John surgery. Um, Another starter, in my opinion, would be great. Maybe another bullpen arm, I think. Uh, like I said, the bullpen did not pitch bad in the division series, but they were I'm not going to call it a weak spot leading up to the postseason, but they did struggle in the final weeks.
yeah, choking is choking. Like, you could say this team chokes, this team chokes. What can you really do about choking? You just got to win the game. You can do whatever. But I would say for the Braves, I don't remember what their payroll is, but I think they got Matt Olson relatively cheap, so to speak, and some other players. Maybe go for a big name. Let's see what happens, right? Especially if you're trying to build on that one title you got 2 years ago.